Hello everybody, welcome back to the Intercooler podcast with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. This is episode 253, and this week we're talking about one of Andrew's favourite subjects.
Yeah, maybe my favourite subject of all.
Which is old Land Rovers, something I know basically nothing about. So we have roped in another old Land Rover enthusiast.
Hello.
So that Andrew can have someone to talk to. Tati Reed.
Hello.
Welcome to the Intercooler podcast.
Can I just say in advance, one of the reasons I'm so glad that Tatty has come on this podcast is you are the first person in over 250 podcasts to come in here and make Dan look old.
I do feel
you
old.
Look old.
Oh, well, you're very kind. I don't believe you at all because I feel it. So, Tatty, you are better known to most people as Over in the Rover.
Yes, potentially.
On Instagram and TikTok. You document life with Blue Tit. Who or what is Blue Tit, please?
Blue Tit is my very beloved 1985 Land Rover 90 in lovely Stratus blue, and she's sort of the love of my life.
Oh, wow.
She's great. She's, just a fantastic little Land Rover.
Do you know she's called it Land Rover 90? It is not a Defender.
It's not a Defender.
Very important.
Very important.
These distinct.
When did it become Defender?
In, 1989,
You're looking at me now, aren't you?
I want to say.
Possibly, he said, filling furiously without really knowing what he's talking about.
This is why I just say old Land Rovers, and that covers all manner of sins. If you say that, you sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the beginner's guide to the general, like, what's called what, is you've got the series that goes up to, I think, about 1989. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, no, because yours is earlier than that, isn't it? So the series stopped when yours started, or did they carry on? Did they overlap?
I think they carried on for a bit.
Okay, I don't really know. So
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, but they went up to Series 3, which is what I've got.
Yes, and then they made the 90 and the 110.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Actually, the 110 and the 90, and then they started the Defenders, and obviously you've got, like, the full controls and all of the other stuff in the middle as well.
I remember, so there's a gap between the series cars and the Defenders even.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Oh, and you've got the V8 Stage 1.
Yes, okay.
If you want to be really pernickety about it.
Yes.
This is why you're here, Tatty. So,
yes. I mean, should we just say that I think one of the most extraordinary things about you is the following that you have built up. I don't do TikTok, so I don't know what kind of following you got there, but on Instagram, how long does it take? You've got nearly 500,000 people are following you, aren't they?
There's a significant amount of people that have pressed the follow button, yeah.
Yeah. And this is not because you are, how can I put this, doing the whole influencer thing. You are out there living with your Land Rover and recounting your experiences, the largely sort of breaking down type experiences. And this really seems to have resonated with an enormous amount of people out there in a very short period of time. So, yeah, I guess the obvious question is, how did it all start?
It all started because I think quite naively bought a little old Land Rover, called it Blue Tit. Well, I didn't actually name her Blue Tit. One-Eyed Steve named her Blue Tit. He's
One-Eyed Steve.
The lovely man who sold me Blue Tit.
Uh-huh.
And
why do they call him One-Eye Steve?
because he's got one eye.
And he's called Steve.
And he's called Steve. And I bought this little old Land Rover with the aim of going on a road trip. And I went on the road trip, and I had a roll of tools, and I thought, this will be fine. I didn't know about cars, and I didn't know that they had, I knew that maybe you could get a punctured tyre, and...
So you'd never worked on cars? You'd never serviced a car or changed a spark plug or anything like that?
No, I literally probably wouldn't have known how to open a bonnet.
Okay.
Nothing. Wouldn't know what any of that did. And so I had a roll of tools, and I was like, yes, okay, if we get a puncture, I can replace the wheel, it'll be fine. I went on the road trip, and we were away for 2.5 months. In that trip, we broke down, on average, every 4 days. And so I'd call up One-Eyed Steve, and I was like, okay, we've got a problem. And I'd talk him through it, and he'd explain what he thought my diagnostics was through the phone. And then I'd try and fix it, and then we'd go from there. So,
and when you say, are you doing this on your own or with mates or?
So then it was, I went out with a couple of mates, so I would go out with a friend, and then take them to the airport, they'd fly back, and then I could pick up a new friend.
And so they your mates would sort of relay in and out.
Yes,
but
exactly.
But you were in it all the time.
I was in it.
And was there a particular goal to it? Were you trying to get somewhere, or did you know where you were going to go? Or
no, we had a plan because I had to be at the airport.
Presumably you didn't just go around the M25 for a couple of months.
No, we went down to the first big stop was Nice. and then we went over the Alps and into the Dolomites. Oh, and we also did a bit of northern Italy. We did Florence and Pisa, and then we kind of drove back round. I wanted to go on an adventure because I'd never really done that.
In a 40-year-old Land Rover?
Yeah, but I didn't know that was a difficult thing to do.
And you wonder why you might have broken down a bit?
Yeah. And so I got back home whenever I did in early August, and Dad was trying to explain like wheel bearings or something to me, and bear in mind I'd left as a child, well, young adult that didn't really know anything, and then Dad was suddenly trying to explain these mechanical things that he didn't really know about either, and I was like, Pop, like, I've got it now, like I understand it a little bit. And
did you learn a huge amount while you're out there? There's nothing quite like doing it. You can have your Haynes manual. Yeah. In fact, you told me to go and get a workshop manual. They're not the same thing, are they?
They're really good. Workshop manuals are very good. The Haynes manual, they haven't actually got a Haynes manual for what my little Land Rover is, which is a little bit annoying. They've got one for the diesel equivalent, but so then I have to get kind of both the workshop manual and the Haynes manual in order to get all of the information.
So Tatty's Land Rover's got a very rare engine in it.
Oh, wow. So it's a special car?
It's all of it's
a 6.1 litre V12.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
That's
600 horsepower.
That's a lie.
And airbags.
How much power are we talking?
It used to have 37, and then I got it tuned.
37?
And now it's got 67.
It's got more than that.
It's got 67 now. It's been tuned.
Tuned to 67?
No, because mine's got... I'm sure mine's got 70.
What, from factory?
Well, yeah, probably doesn't have that anymore. No, so there were this is going to be so boring for you now. I'm so sorry. But there were the sort of base engine for all the series Land Rovers was, well, certainly the Series 3 was a 2.25 litre petrol engine.
Yeah.
But then, for a very brief period of time, they did a bigger version, which was 2.5 litres, which is what you've got.
Yeah. Have you got 4 gears or 5 gears?
Just the 4.
Yeah, so they did
I don't have a fairy overdrive on mine.
No, but in
Has yours got 5?
I've got 5 and the 2.5 petrol.
Oh, so yours is a hot rod?
It's like the motorway equivalent. When nowadays, if you took it on the motorway, you'd realise it is not.
So, would it cruise at 60 miles an hour?
No, unless you're going downhill with a very, very big tail.
What would be your sort of sensible all-day cruising speed?
53.
Okay, mine's 45.
Ah,
so that's the
speedy.
difference. Speedy.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Well, you say that. I mean, it's almost like sort of 15% increase in usable speed.
That's that 5th gear.
So listen,
that 5th gear.
We just need to talk about your Instagram, your social media journey a little bit, because it's only 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago, that you started posting about Blue Tit regularly. And in that time, as Andrew said, your channel just seems to have exploded. It's extraordinary. But I totally understand why, because as anyone will know if they've seen your stuff on Instagram,
over in the Rover if you haven't.
Over in the Rover, there'll be a link. There'll be a link in the show notes. You're very enthusiastic, very charming, very natural on camera, and it all makes sense. It's just good fun to see you getting stuck in.
Authentic.
Yeah,
I think you're kind of an anti-influencer.
Someone called me that the other day. I was doing a what's in my basket and it had beers in it. And
what's in my basket?
Oh, I had this little old basket. It's my friend's granny's basket from, I think she made him Sunday lunch. Anyway, it was a basket and I put in like a wheel hub, a beer and some sockets. And I did a fun little thing of what's in my basket. And then someone said, you're an anti-influencer. And I was like, I'm not quite sure about that. But
it's a compliment.
I don't really know what I'm doing, and it was never really the plan.
That's why.
It's the idea to put the sort of the meaning of your life in one basket, a beer and a wheel bearing or whatever it was.
Something like that.
Okay.
I don't really think there was an idea. I just thought it was funny.
Well, yes, you're right there.
But I think Andrew's probably onto something, because I mean this influencer thing, when it is at its worst, at its most vacuous, it's just terrible. And so maybe there is real appetite for the opposite of that, something with substance, with authenticity, with meaning. Yeah. That's what you do.
But you have to believe it, don't you?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could watch any of the stuff that you put on Instagram and think you were just doing that because someone was paying you to do it.
But they're not normally.
No, well, indeed.
But would you not, in some ways, like I think the car world, I've found slowly, is quite reluctant towards the whole influencer thing. And obviously there are that, but I think especially more old media is a bit like anti-influencer. But I mean, you guys are podcasting away and influencering away.
Of a sort.
What we're not doing is being paid to promote people's products for them. Okay. And I guess that's the big difference. So we're not saying things because people are paying us to say them. We're saying things because, like you,
we believe it.
We believe it.
I won't accept a deal on something I don't believe in. So if I wasn't going to say it or I don't like it, then that's not
exactly.
happening.
So when did you know that you might be onto something here, or when did your channel get going?
It would have been August 2023.
Yeah.
And I made one, I think I told you this story, so this is probably going to be quite boring, but I made one little video and it went quite viral, as we'll call it. And
which video was that?
It was like a spoof.
The spoof Bentley one.
Yeah, exactly. Someone was.
Oh, with the going down the radiator grill.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is now cracked. But it was that, and that I think got 23 million views in 2 weeks or something like that. And
Goodness.
then I went from, I think, 1,000 followers, something like that, at the beginning of that, to 53,000 in 2 weeks. And I sat down with my parents and like, oh, this is a bit scary. There's lots of people, all of which I don't know, looking at like the 3 videos I've ever put up on the internet. And I was like, oh, I'll just delete it. Don't worry. It will be fine. No one will ever know. And they were like, no, just keep going. Like, have a laugh, make silly videos. And as long as you're enjoying it, then keep it going. And then when I finished uni, I was like, right, this is actually like gaining some traction. I'll give it a go for a year. And if I'm still enjoying it from a year and I can make a bit of a living out of it, then we'll keep on going. But I'm going to do it year by year. And if it stops working, I'll get a boring job. But for now, this is the job.
Well, I hope you keep doing it. That's super cool. What's it like then to watch a video like that just explode and get millions upon millions of views? Is it weird? Are you checking it every 10 minutes going, how many now? How many now?
Well, I couldn't really because I was about to start the 3 peaks, so I was up a mountain.
Okay. Oh, that's actually a great way to do it, isn't it? Get away from it all.
Be somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think I've got a bit of a dissociation. It doesn't feel like an actual thing. I think that I just see them as numbers and I don't associate a person looking at that.
Yeah.
And are you good at, we sort of agonise because we don't really understand the whole sort of algorithm thing and you need to be doing a certain sort of video in a certain sort of way at a certain sort of time. Do you just do whatever you want to do and stick it up there and it does what it does? You don't sort of try and game the system at all, presumably?
There's a bit of both. Sometimes it's just, as I was saying with what's in my basket, I just post it because it's funny and like it's not that deep. It doesn't really matter. It's just a little like a bit of fun. And then sometimes, especially if there is like an end goal or a bit of a plan, then it's a little bit more thought through and I'll like structure, I'll make a certain series about this. Sake of argument, the new car series. I want to be the whole plan with buying Blue Tit, as I said at the beginning, was I wanted to go on adventures and road trips and all of that fun stuff. And that's still the plan. And I know that I won't be able to do all of those in Blue Tit. Sometimes there'll be adventures that I would really love to have or someone's invited me to do or that become possible that I can't take Blue Tit. And I'm kind of having to maybe train my audience a little bit that not all of the adventures will be in Blue Tit. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to do a little bit with the what car should I buy as my next overlanding vehicle series, because I'd like to, obviously, Blue Tit's fantastic, but I just can't do everything that I want to do in her because she's almost 40 and not very happy.
So let's just talk about Blue Tit for a minute. I think you said to me when we first met that you really didn't know much about cars before Blue Tit came into your life. You're not one of these people who sort of grew up with posters of cars all over your bedroom wall or anything like that. And then suddenly this car comes into your life. You bought it from One-Eyed Steve. First, why did you buy it? You bought it from One-Eyed Steve because you wanted to do a road trip. But really, I guess the real question is, what is it about this car which lets you down all the time, which you love so much, and your love for it is so transparent and obvious, you couldn't possibly be manufacturing it? Just talk Blue Tit to us.
The hunt for Blue Tit, I spent a lot of time. I've got a lovely friend called Matt who knows a lot about Land Rovers, and I spent a lot of time with him on Auto Trader, being like, "Is this one good?" Obviously, I had no idea what the difference is between a Series 3 or a 2015 Defender, apart from the price.
Okay, so One-Eyed Steve wasn't somebody you knew. This wasn't a car that you knew, which had belonged to some family friend, and it became available, or
so. After a lot of searching on Auto Trader with Matt said, "Oh, I've got this friend called Steve, who I now call One-Eyed Steve, and he's okay with that." I've and he was like, "We should just go and have a chat with Steve. He is literally the Land Rover oracle." And we had to go and had a chat with Steve, and he said, "What's your budget?" And I said, "This is my budget." And he said, well, I've got this car for you. And now I'm a little bit wiser. But anyway, he showed me this car and I was like, well, this is perfect. He sold me the dream. He was like, it'll be ready in 2 weeks. I'm doing a total rebuild. And I was like, yes, perfect. Let's go. And
this is such a familiar conversation.
I thought it was just Land Rovers that happened to.
What, that break down all the time?
Well, no, that people were like, yes, total rebuild in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But after 2 weeks, I said, hey, Steve, is my little Land Rover ready yet? And he was like, no. Anyway, it was about a 4-month delayed period. And I think that 4 months, the whole waiting and calling Steve every week saying, are we nearly there yet? Are we nearly there yet? Meant that then when Blue Tit was ready, it was all the more exciting because I'd been waiting for so long. It wasn't just like, here's a car on Friday, pick it up on Saturday. So that whole build-up process. And then because 2 days after I picked her up, we were out in Europe and we were kind of just me and my mates fending for ourselves.
So you left, the day after you got it?
Yeah, 2 days after.
Okay.
With my roll of tools. But because...
Which you didn't know how to use.
Which I didn't know how to use. But because it was then just like us in Europe and occasional phone signal, it was kind of like my little Land Rover Blue Tit, me and an occasional friend that didn't know anything about cars either.
Did you have AA European relay cover?
I had recovery but not breakdown. So they would move us but they wouldn't fix us, hence me having to fix something because they didn't know. But it was just, it was us against the world. And it was, I don't know if other people have this with their cars, but I felt so bonded to her because my whole life was in her, on her, driving her, whatever. So
you have that sort of experience in a car, particularly when it's your very first experience of that car. I can see how that might
absolutely.
I don't know if that's a bit sad.
No, not at all.
Well, the thing is, it probably is. But it's all right. Yeah, but you're amongst friends. Everybody listening to this is, by definition, a bit sad. Yeah. So don't worry about it. Celebrate it.
They all understand that you can have a bond with a car, as weird as that sounds to other people.
You've got your Series 3 that you're pretty attached to, aren't you?
Yes. Yes. I won't bang on about it because people are probably bored of hearing about it. But yes, I passed my test in it. And yeah, I couldn't be parted from it. I mean, I happen to need it. Because it serves a purpose where I live. But yeah, I mean, I learned how to drive in that car, really, passed my test in it. And then when, I think I got it in 97. Because, basically the car was bought by my father because he had idiot sons all learning how to drive at the same time and he wanted the slowest, strongest thing money could buy. And this car, we lived on Jersey at the time, this car had done 1,032 miles when he got it. It still hasn't done 50,000 miles.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. Well, because in Jersey, you can't do big miles.
No.
Yeah. And then when I got it, it's basically been used as a farm vehicle. So it's never done. I think probably the longest journey it's ever done in its life was from Weymouth, where I got off the boat in it, to where I live now. No, it's not true, actually, because I drove it back from, when I had the chassis replaced, I drove it back from North Yorkshire. But that's the only long drive it's ever done.
When we met, you were saying that you haven't broken down in it apart from once.
Once, very recently. Yes, and I think that probably is a marked contrast. But I think that probably says a lot just about the fact that the car has essentially been in the same ownership for the last 43 years. Well, it's my father and then it was me. And yes, recently it just stopped working. And it was just one of those, I think it was a condenser. It was like a £5 bit at most. But yeah, and I just couldn't believe it. It had to be towed back by my mate behind his Discovery, with me sitting in it, feeling unbelievably sad and let down. So yes, literally, it's the first time ever it stopped to work, and I just couldn't believe it. Whereas for you, that's kind of like
it's a daily.
A daily occurrence.
Once every 4 days.
So, about that European trip, because it sounds fantastic.
It was heaven.
I'd love to do something like that. I've got a 2-year-old now. I've got a little dog. I've got a wife. It's going to be hard to make that happen.
Get a 110, then.
Oh, bigger. There's room for everyone, then.
Exactly.
You can get them with 9 seats.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
There was a certain sort which
kids.
avoided the London congestion charge because they qualified as being a minibus.
With a 130, what do you have? 2 rows and then?
I think even with a 110, because you would have, what would you have? You'd only have a 2 in the front, but there'd be 3 in the back, and then you could get 4 of those sideways seats, like I've got in the back of my 88.
Yeah.
And that's 9 seats. And that's a minibus.
I can't stop these two geeking out about Land Rovers. I want to hear about.
This isn't even geeky.
No, we haven't begun yet.
Okay, I just want to hear about this trip because it sounds brilliant. Where was really stunning? What sort of things were going wrong with the car itself?
So similar to your Series 3 is we had a lot of problems with points, distribution, condensers, that whole section there. There was a lot of issues there.
Have you cheated?
You know I've put electronic ignition in.
Shocking.
And I think you should too.
I think it's a good move.
No, it's
Poor
not.
behaviour.
It's really not. It makes so much sense. Before I put electronic ignition in, not only was it the thing that... So about a year ago, I did a Blue Tit's Breakdown Wrapped, where I summarised everything that broke down, and it was either the carburettor or distribution that happened every single time. So... after about a week of every single day having to reset the points, I'd get like my little debit card in and go doo-doo, and then adjust it to the space and everything. I was like, this is just bollocks. So...
absolutely right.
I got electronic ignition, and I genuinely think you should too, because it was like 5p, and you just stick it in. It takes 2 seconds. The instructions are on a piece of paper in the packet, and I have not had a problem with them since. It is fantastic.
See, Harris did this to me.
Yeah, I know.
So Chris Harris is and has been for many years a mate of both of ours, and we once had a race across a field in our 2CVs.
Right.
And he cheated. He did exactly what you did.
Put electronic ignition
He'd put electronic ignition
for
on
the
his car.
race.
For the race. And actually, I think to be fair, he put it on because it was on Top Gear, wasn't it? And I think the reason he did it, to be fair to him, is the Top Gear production team didn't want it breaking down in the middle of nowhere because that would just interrupt the shoot. So he put it on. But we did this race, and he never told me.
But I think it's not a modern, and it is a bit modern, but I think it's a very justifiable.
Do you know what? I think it probably is. I may just be jealous that I haven't got it myself.
I last night I was lying in bed and I was like, I should, if I go past the part shop, I'll go and pick you up on electronic ignition. Because they're literally
a gift for you.
Yeah.
The honour of coming on the TI podcast.
I think it's a good move. So, tell me about this trip. Where did you go that was really stunning? Where should people absolutely make a beeline for if they're doing something similar?
Dolomites, 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah, I've not been, but every image, every video you see does look amazing.
We kind of, and it sounds a bit silly, but my European geography is horrific.
Right.
We went down to Florence and Pisa and then went across because I was picking someone up from Venice, I want to say, airport.
Probably, yeah.
Which I thought Venice was a lot more south in Italy. Turns out it's quite north. Anyway, yes. We then were kind of going back, and I would just assume that the Alps just went on a bit, but then the Dolomites appeared, and it looks like dinosaur land. Like, it genuinely, if you turn around a corner and a dinosaur egg was there cracking on you, you wouldn't be surprised. You'd be like, classic.
Of course.
But it is the most insane place. They're not mountains, they're just shards of rock everywhere. The roads are insane. At like 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it is, every day. Massive storms, but beautiful weather. The lakes are crystal blue. The camp spots are insane. It is just the most... I couldn't recommend it enough. It's so cool.
So you weren't staying in 5-star hotels every night?
No, I did 2.5 months in a roof tent. It was great. It's genuinely, I think, the happiest time of my life.
That's quite hard, that's quite hardcore, isn't it?
I think that's brilliant. I'd love to do that.
When you unzip and you just hear the birds tootling around, you're there with your teddy and your sleeping bag and your pillow, and there's like... just mountains, fields, birds, and then butterflies just tootling around, and you're on the top of your favourite thing in the world. It is just the best thing ever.
I did 8 days in a tent last year.
Roof tent or tent?
Tent.
Right.
Yeah, so not even roof tent. No, I did 8 tent. Well, I can't believe it's any more or less fun than a roof tent. But anyway, I remember getting out of it and thinking, really, the only good thing about this entire experience is knowing that I'll never spend another night in a tent in my life.
I don't think ground tents miserable. Roof tents fantastic.
Go on, sell me the roof tent over the ground tent.
It takes 2 seconds to put up.
Okay.
You're flat, providing you park flat.
Yeah.
And ground tent, if you've got a rock underneath you, you feel it. Whereas with a roof tent, you've got that hard surface.
Okay.
So you're always comfy. You can leave your sleeping bag and your pillow and your teddy in there. So you go, whoosh, pew.
Oh, okay.
Bed's ready.
Okay.
It takes
that does sound
no time.
brilliant.
Yeah. It is fantastic. I think ground tent, I wouldn't do it in a ground tent.
No.
That's not very fun.
Okay.
Roof tent all the way.
And there's enough space and you don't fall off the edge or over the side of the car or anything?
No, I had me and my 2 cousins who, they used to be about 3 years old and suddenly they're 15 or so.
It's weird how that happens, isn't it?
I know, it's awful.
Well, you had 3 of you in there?
There were 3 of us and they're now
Wow.
like 6 foot. And it was tight, but we all fit in.
Goodness.
It sounds like a great trip. Now, if people have watched your stuff, lots of people listening will have seen your stuff on Instagram. You are very often in scruffy overalls, blue overalls, with grease on your forehead in the engine bay of Blue Tit.
Sadly.
You've clearly learned a huge amount over the last couple of years. how mechanically adept would you say you are now? And there is no judgment from me here because I don't know the first thing. So how far do you think your knowledge has come in 2 years?
It's uncomparable to when I started because I didn't know a single thing where I started. So if my 2023 Tatty can look at me now, I'm literally a genius. Like, I'm the world's best mechanic, according to her.
Yeah, of course.
However long it is ago. The problem is, the more you know, the more you don't know.
The more you realise you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can get by. A lot of the chassis stuff and axles and like swivels and those bits I don't really understand. And if you said, hey Tatty, rebuild an engine, I'd be like, ha ha ha, nope. But I can, on a breakdown level, most of the time I can be just about all right, or I've got a friend on the phone who knows what they're on about.
Okay, so you can change spark plugs.
Yep.
You can change brake pads.
I have done, though I would probably want a bit of a recap on that one.
Could you optimise the tuning of your carburettor?
Yes.
Could you?
Yeah, there's a little idle screw.
I can do that.
Oh, it's just you just turn. I can't.
But can you do the mixture as well?
Well, it's the kind of the same one. There's a screw on the right that I haven't touched, but there's the idle screw.
Okay.
And oh no, I lie. I haven't touched the mixture screw. I've just done the idle screw, and then that just ups the idle a little bit. But then the mixture screw, I put a new carburetor on the other day because I tried to I did rebuild mine, and it still didn't work. So I was like, sod this, I'm getting a new one. And it comes with a preset mixture screw. And then if you just check the spark plugs of the colour of the spark plugs, then you can see if it's set about right.
This is someone who really knows what they're talking about.
Well, certainly more than I do.
I think that's it. I'm done now. I don't know anything else.
You flagged it. Well done. I think that's super cool. I read something where you brilliantly described these old Land Rovers as basically greasy Lego.
Did I? That was very poetic of me.
It is. It is very poetic. So are they actually quite simple?
Very simple.
Yeah, but they still defeat me. Really? The thing is, I just get scared because I know that if I took something to bits, and even if I managed to get it back together again, I'd just be left with, a couple of washers and a few bolts and that sort of thing. And I'd just be thinking, they came out of somewhere and they certainly haven't gone back in. And then I would just sort of get into this spiral of doom where I'd have to take off other bits to get, and it would just go. And also, I just find accessing stuff so difficult.
But you're quite tall.
Yes.
So I can sit in the engine, and it's fine. There's a big space for me, especially because on mine they move the radiator forward. So it's like kind of the big difference between the Series 3s and the 90s. They just shove the radiators forwards a bit. So there's a socking great hole where you couldn't fit in that.
And you can get in there.
I can just sit in it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good look for me. That definitely wouldn't be a good look for me.
Do you find yourself enjoying working on Blue Tit?
Sometimes.
Or is it needs must?
Sometimes when it's 11 o'clock at night and I've just driven up half of the steepest hill in the south of England, and I've broken down halfway up it because the alternator's just gone. I've got no lights. It's pitch black, and there's traffic coming at 60 miles an hour around me, and I'm having to lie underneath the car trying to undo the alternator, and there's a scary man there saying, "Hoo, here's my cigarette, and here's your Land Rover, which is a petrol." And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir, please don't smoke that next to my Land Rover because it will explode." That's quite scary, and I don't really like that. And when you can't see everything, but if I feel like it's making progress, and I'm like, yes, we're on to something here. Then it's fantastic and it's really exciting because you just know that you're going to get a better Land Rover after it and it's going to work. But other people's cars, I don't get the same satisfaction from because I don't get to drive it afterwards.
So, that's interesting. So, when you make your millions out of Over in the Rover, would you ever consider giving Blue Tit a complete sort of ground-up restoration and making her beautiful? Or do you think there's something about the scruffiness and the unreliability which is actually all part of the charm?
So I've very recently had this conversation with Rob, who's helping out with Blue Tit at the moment, and my dad reversed into her wing over Christmas, and I was not deeply happy. And I tried my best to practice all of the patience I had, and I was there like, it's okay. And I've been quoted quite a lot of money to replace it because it's not just a panel of the wing, it's the entire wing, even though it's not a massive dent, but it's also MOT fail because the headlights are at a different angle. Anyway, the problem with that is some of the paint's chipped, and then to respray that section, you'd have to, it's quite a big job, and then if you're going to respray that wing, then do you respray the entire thing? And then you get into the questions of how much, when do you stop, all of that. This
is why my Land Rover has different coloured doors.
And it's not something I particularly want to do because Blue Tit she does all of the fun things that I think Land Rover should do. And if you got a new paint job and all of that, then you don't want to use it for what it's meant for. The engine, I don't want to ever swap. The chassis, I might have to because of rust, but I don't want to make her a smart thing. That's not what she is. She's been a utility vehicle ever since she came off the production line, and I've got her whole service history, and she's always just worked.
Yes,
and I really like that, and I like all the dents and everything on the inside, not on the outside. But especially that engine. That's
what I'd like mine to be, and it's not that far off it. Because I've got a new chassis on it, is a car which, well, mine does look scruffy, but which is actually mechanically absolutely as it should be.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
That's the way, isn't it?
That's the way with the best sort of, they call them preservation cars now. So they don't try to make them better than new or even as good as new. They look like they look, but they work.
And also, if you're driving around looking super fancy in your old little Land Rover, there is a bit of a juxtaposition that doesn't particularly work. And I think Land Rovers are meant to be a bit scruffy and hopefully work. But I just don't think it suits.
I certainly think if I saw, Blue Tit, and I'm sort of 2015, last of the line, whatever, and was asked which is the cool Land Rover here, there's no question at all.
The Tit.
It's the Tit.
Can we talk about the charm of driving these things? Whether off-road or on-road.
How long have you got?
I mean, I've had a go in a couple. They're quite noisy. They're rattly. They bounce about. They are not fast. They have very, very ponderous steering. I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing. I'm just saying I
think you are.
But that's right, isn't it? But nevertheless, I can understand how driving these things is enjoyable because you have to get stuck in. You have to really be involved in the process.
I think that from chatting to people, it depends on the angle you've come to cars from. If you've come from a supercar-y, zoomy car approach, yes, question to you, sir.
That's me. That's where I come from, yeah.
And then if you come from that side, I think people don't, or take quite a long time to get it.
Yeah.
Whereas as your first car and learn to drive car, it makes a lot more sense. And as my first ever sort of proper car, I had a Peugeot 206 and a Mini that both I think got scrapped after. But it makes sense if you haven't come from the.
I get that.
Can I jump? I think there's something else going on here as well. And I've said this on the podcast before many a time. I love cars. My favourite cars are cars which know what they're for.
And that's literally Land Rovers.
And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a series Land Rover or your car or a Ferrari F40 or an original 1950s Fiat Cinquecento. I love cars which are fit for their very particular purpose. And I suppose it goes back to this authenticity thing again. And I think that no one could drive one of these old Land Rovers and say, "Oh, it's trying to be something else," or they are so brilliantly, superbly, exclusively designed to do one job and one job really, really well. And I think that if you have any kind of appreciation in your veins at all for cars that do that, you cannot fail but to be charmed by these things.
And do you have fun driving yours, particularly on the road?
Yeah, I do, and it's very difficult to articulate what is fun about it because you're right. It doesn't steer, it doesn't grip, it doesn't do anything. It's bad. Every single thing, apart from going off road, and I don't do very much. I don't do a fraction of the off roading you do in yours. Every single thing it does either poorly or badly. It's not mediocre at anything. And so why do I love? I suppose for mine, there's a particular history with that car. I do love the way that they look, and I love what you were talking about. You have to get stuck in. You have to be involved in it. You have to manage it all the time to get anywhere. And I just feel really. One other thing I like about it is I just really like it as my winter old car.
When
winter
everyone
beater.
else is stuck.
When everybody else is stuck.
Yeah.
And you notice this, particularly around where we live, where the weather can get quite bad. All the people in their posh 4x4s just run for cover at the first sign of it. And then all the people who've got Defenders and series cars and cars like yours.
They're all out.
They're all out, pulling people out of ditches. And there is a sort of silent community of people who do this and understand this and get this. And I just get being... There's a certain sort of... If two old Land Rovers pass each other on the road,
Oh, God.
It's lovely.
Why do you say, oh, God, it's the best feeling ever?
For those merely watching this rather than, merely listening to this rather than watching it, Tatty has just given a very enthusiastic way. And so you either get a very enthusiastic rave, or sometimes even better, just a raised finger off the top of the wheel.
But if you're in Wales, nope, blanked. Any Land Rover in Wales, I don't think that they've kind of...
That's just most people.
No, but...
You're being very Welshist here.
Sorry, Wales, but it's just true. But driving along, the permanent smile, apart from when you're breaking down, driving around a Land Rover is literally incomparable. And you see another Land Rover driving past, and it's not like passing anything else, because there's so much that you understand about that other person driving that other Land Rover.
It's the shared pain, isn't it?
But
and the joy.
It is, and it's a whole understanding, and I think it's just the knowledge in some ways that you know that other person is like a kind of all right person. Yeah. If they've got a Land Rover, they're probably not going to be a dick. They're probably quite nice. Yeah. And it's just lovely.
It's one of those cars. Oh, goodness. Well, so these things keep on occurring to me. You know that if you end up with and I try really hard not to do this, and I will always pull over, but if you end up with a pile of cars stacked up behind you, no one is sitting there cursing you, because they're genuinely thinking, well, that's the best it can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you're there in your Ford Fiesta and you're still doing 45 miles an hour down a big wide open A road,
they're going to drug test you.
People are just going to think, well, you shouldn't be driving if you can't even manage 50 miles an hour on a road like this. But in the Land Rover, they just think, oh, that's going quite well for a car like that.
And the other Land Rovers help if you break down. Other Land Rovers stop. And the amount of Land Rovers I've been towed by when I've been broken down on the side of the road, it's fantastic.
Oh, that's nice.
On the top of a hill the other day, there was a little Series 3, and the guy was sitting there on the phone, and he was in a lay-by, and I sort of stopped and I said, "Are you all right, sir? Are you broken down?" He said, "No, I'm just on the phone," but unusually. And I thought, that's nice. I'm so pleased you haven't broken down, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had. And it's just that lovely little community of people that...
That's quite sweet. That's sweet. So I do tease. I mean, I actually understand from the, what these things are like to drive. I actually do understand. And there's a parallel that I can draw here between a Jeep Wrangler that I had on test a few months ago. Bear with.
Go on.
Bear with. No, I know that's what's the word? That's quite offensive to you, isn't it? Probably talking about a Jeep Wrangler. But the thing about the Wrangler is, if you compare that to a modern day Defender, which is a very, very modern, upmarket, grown-up car, right? And that's a car that doesn't really require you to put in any effort at the wheel. It does everything for you. The Wrangler is not like that. You have to get quite stuck in. It's quite crude in many ways, but you are involved in the process of making this thing go down the road. Yeah. And there is a certain appeal and charm in that. I don't think that's necessarily what you want if you're commuting to and from the office every day or doing a long journey or whatever. But for a certain type of driving, you want to feel like you're involved in making this thing go down the road. And that's what you get in these more rudimentary cars.
It's actual driving.
It is driving. It's real driving.
Rather than just saying, here's all the electric buttons, let's go.
Exactly.
And where Andrew and I met we were doing a little drive in the Grenadiers in Wales, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
Is actually all credit to them. I think they've kept that. I don't know if you...
No, you are completely right. In fact,
Tatty, you have absolutely preempted me here, because that was the point I was going to make.
Clever. Good segue.
There you go. So so you two met on the Grenadier Quartermaster launch in the middle of Wales.
Well, it wasn't really a launch. It was just an event for lots of Grenadiers, and I happened to turn up in a Quartermaster.
I
see. So Tatty was you're in a normal Grenadier.
I was in the Fieldmaster.
A Fieldmaster.
Very smart.
I see.
The naming strategy, because I was in a Quartermaster, but I was also in a Trial Master, but they were the same car.
Yeah.
It was a Master. It was just a Master.
Yeah.
But it's a Master.
It's a double Master.
It's a double Master.
But yes, the Grenadier, because it is a ladder frame car, isn't it? With live axles, correct. I think. And so it's quite by modern standards, a crude car. And as a Land Rover enthusiast, do you drive a Grenadier and go, oh, this is a bit of me? Or are you still thinking, it's not a Land Rover?
No, I really like it. And I feel a little bit torn because I like it so much and because it's so new. I'm like, should I be liking it as much as I am? But I think, going back to your point, that car is built for a purpose, and it knows exactly what that purpose is. It hasn't got any of the heated steering wheels and electric seats and all of that stuff.
I like those.
You like heated steering wheels?
He does too.
I don't get it.
I do like heated steering wheels.
I don't get it.
I love a heated steering wheel.
But you only need them on for like 2 seconds of a day. Just put a pair of gloves on.
No. Come on, we're digressing. But you're right. There is, again, it's this word. It's authenticity.
And so I've not driven the Grenadier, but Andrew, you've driven a couple, and they never review well, as in they don't get a 10 out of 10 rating. They don't get 5 stars. They don't get 4 stars typically in these magazine road tests.
But I think that sorry to interrupt you, but I think that the wrong people are firstly, road test, the issue being they're not built for the roads. I genuinely think that they're being given to maybe the wrong people to test them.
I think you're probably right. But also, imagine if the Defender, it only went out of production 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that.
2015.
Okay, 10 years. Well done, you two.
We're such losers.
Well done, you two. 10 years ago. Imagine if it was still in production.
Yeah.
It wouldn't review well, that car, would it?
No.
And so the Grenadier really is quite like that, I guess.
I would review if I was a car journalist reviewer. I would review it quite highly, apart from the steering. I think the steering is what letting it down with all of the car reviews. It's got the powered ball...
Recirculating ball thing, yes.
Yeah. Exactly that. And I'm not a car expert, but I do think that they have, with the whole it being very authentic and that it's built for a purpose, I think that there is a little bit of compromise that should have been made in that, and I think that the recirculating ball power system thing is, in my opinion, they shouldn't have put that steering in.
They would say that it's very difficult, and I'm not any kind of spokesperson for Ineos, quite the reverse. I gave the Quartermaster 6 out of 10. But at the same time saying I was really sorry to see it go.
Yeah.
But they would say that it's really difficult to get the correct off-road steering response from rack and pinion steering system when you're using live axles.
Okay, so it's about the...
It's about the whole package. So there is, whether it is an explanation or an excuse, I don't know, but that is certainly what they say is the reasoning behind it.
Do you think that they could maybe put like some springs on the recirculating ball so it does self-center?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because I've spent my entire life driving really old cars. Cars like 100 and something years old. I am less sensitive to it than most because it's like all things that if you just do it, if you are so used to steering systems like that, you just get into it and you just think, okay, fair enough. The thing that I found infuriating about the Quartermaster, it's bad on the one you've got, but in the Quartermaster because it's, how much longer did you say it was? Like a metre longer?
I thought it was a metre longer.
Yeah, and half of that is an extension in the wheelbase. The lock, which is poor on a normal one, or the Quartermaster, it is, you have to completely recalibrate your manoeuvres. Because however bad you think the turning circle is, when you actually try to manoeuvre it, it's worse. And you don't get used to it. It's always a surprise at how unable it is to turn in a small space.
I drove mine into London yesterday because I'm doing a little YouTube video and I thought it'd be fun to do it... to test it in Wales where it's built for, and then also to drive it in all the environments that it's not built for, aka London. And there was a roundabout the size of a dinner plate, and I had to reverse round it. Okay, it was a tiny roundabout, but there is also normal sized roundabouts that I do worry if I'm going to get round. Very much, I'd like to preface this with, I really like the Grenadier more so than...
Yeah, sounds like it.
I genuinely
more than you thought you were going to.
I'm like such a big fan of it, a reluctant big fan, but a really big fan of it.
Yeah.
But the whole steering and turning stuff, it's worse than Blue Tit.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is longer than a 110, so...
Yeah. Okay, so mine's an 88, so really short wheelbase,
and
its turning circle is terrible. Absolutely terrible, despite its really short wheelbase.
You two are really selling this.
No, okay, but if
we do really like it.
But what is annoying is, there are off-the-shelf four-wheel steering systems you can just buy.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Bosch, I'm sure, will be more than happy to sell you.
Oh, I see what I thought you meant that we could go and buy.
Oh, no. But the Ineos could have engineered into it. But then they would have said, but that's adding complications. That's one more thing to go wrong. It's added this, that, and the other, and it would no longer be the authentic farm vehicle that we want it to be.
Okay, enough Ineos. So it sounds like, as a result of everything that you're doing on social media, you get to do some quite cool things now, such as this event.
It's amazing.
So what else have you been able to do?
Oh, like literally anything. It's everything I've done in the last however long is somehow people have just been like, hey, do you want to come and do this? I drove a Ginetta around the Silverstone the other day.
Did you?
That was so cool. I've never been...
A race car?
Yeah.
And?
Unbelievable. I did... Well...
Did you lose control?
I did.
Oh, well done. Do you know what? I'm really glad because if you don't, you just weren't trying hard enough. You weren't making the most of the experience.
Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't hit anything, but I did.
Did you go into the gravel? You're just drawn to the gravel?
We just did a little pirouette.
Oh, that's fine.
That's all right.
That doesn't even count.
Everyone
does that.
But it was absolutely unbelievable.
We've just done an entire podcast about crashing.
Yeah. Have you recently?
No.
Oh, that's
no,
good.
No, not for a very long time, I'm glad to say. But yes, but that was, so what was that? Was that a G, what was it? Do you know what it was?
G something 7, 67, 57, 97, something 7.
What, was it really fast or was it quite...
It sounded, I mean, I don't actually, I couldn't take my eyes off the road because there was enough, oh dear, sorry, there was enough going on. It was fast and very noisy, and it's obviously got straight cut gears. It's a proper race car, and it was like, it was proper and very, very manual, very involved, and I absolutely loved it. And I would quite like to become a racing driver, though I have zero skill. But maybe one day.
You don't know how much skill you've got, do you, if you don't try it? It's like all these things. I think so many people just assume that they can't do something because they've never done it. I don't think you know.
What else? I think I've seen you knocking about in Porsches.
Oh, yeah.
You went up market.
That was their Porsche have been so lovely and supportive and just fantastically nice. Surprising. Yeah. I would be like, I don't think I'm probably Porsche's target market.
No, but they're good people.
They're so nice. And they said when I was still at uni, so May or June or whenever it was, they said, hey, do you want to come to the Porsche Experience Centre and go round in a GT3 RS? And I said, absolutely.
Wow.
Yes, please. I would really, 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 really like that. But I had my exams and like dissertation and everything due. I said, would you mind if I possibly save this till after my dissertation? Because this is like the peak of my life. And if I have the peak of my life before my dissertation, then I probably won't hand in my dissertation. So I saved that for after I'd done uni. And it was just the most amazing thing. And just so I didn't understand half the buttons because bear in mind I
don't understand half the buttons.
There's so many buttons.
So many buttons.
Did you go on the kicker plate? That's the thing that spins the car.
Yeah, on the water hill.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and you have to try and catch it.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it is just like chill out. And if you just be like, okay, a bit gentle, because I started like really tense.
Yeah, you're right.
You're completely right. Because you don't know which way it's going to kick the car.
No.
Yes.
And then I just chilled out a bit and it was fine. And the lovely man instructing me was so proficient and so knowledgeable and so relaxed. And I think I might have peaked in life a little bit too early. But
there's a long way to go.
There's all sorts of stuff still to come, I'm sure.
But there's been a whole load of stuff, and like BF Goodrich have been very lovely, and they took Blue Tit and I to Spain, and we did this whole like weekend off-roading with some amazing people, and that was just heaven. I was like,
tell me you didn't have to drive it there.
No, they transported Blue Tit. It was amazing. Though I wish I had driven back. It would have been really nice to road trip back.
Yeah.
But we just spent the whole time off-roading and with just the loveliest people, and that's what when Andrew said, hey, do you want to come on the podcast, and I was like, a little bit scared, not sure, that sounds a bit nerve-wracking. And then because I thought we had a nice time in Wales, I was like, actually this will be lovely. And I think that's my measure of do I would like to do something, is if everyone's really nice and all of that, then I'm like, yeah, let's do anything, let's go. So
it's a good outlook.
There's been some amazing opportunities that I never thought would quite come my way, but I'm very, very grateful that they have.
Well, you deserve it.
Don't know about that.
We're running out of time, but what's next then? I mean, you've built this following of 500,000 people. You've got Blue Tit. You're very good at what you do. People enjoy watching your stuff. How do you keep it going?
I think there's a couple of different sections to that. Number one for me is kind of like chill out but work hard. If I try and do, like, especially post too much stuff, then, or if I put too much pressure on myself to do that, then I get a bit stressed out.
It becomes work, doesn't it?
It becomes work, and then it's also just like it turns into a bit of drivel. So there's a lot of, I think, pressure to post a lot, but then when you do that, the quality goes down, and then you lose perspective a little bit. So number one is like chill out, but also like keep going, but chill out a bit.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like what's next on the channel and what's going to be seen, Blue Tit needs quite a bit of work on her, because we've kind of got to a slightly unusable stage where I don't trust her to go anywhere, which is not...
So does she get retired at some point?
She won't be retired ever, but she will... It's not fair on her to take her into Europe big time,
Is she going to spend a significant period of time not on the road?
Hopefully not. Hopefully she'll stay on the road, but I don't think that it's fair to take her on a big old road trip again. So I'm going to buy another car.
Oh.
Yes.
Care to share?
It's going to be 4x4 that I can turn into a bit of a camper and do mega overlanding missions. So when I'm in the UK, I can tool around in Blue Tit, and then when I'm abroad, I can do mega missions in this car that hopefully works.
So I suspect you're not. I suspect you already know, but you're not going to tell us, which is fine. But do you know what it's going to be?
Yes.
Do you know? Have you actually identified an individual vehicle?
We're close.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
I know what it. And I've got quite a definite list of requirements, and there's not that many cars that meets that. So yes, I don't think you'll be all that surprised with what it is.
And is it another car that you're going to be working on, getting under the bonnet?
Hopefully not
Trying to keep it
quite
going?
as much, but
Okay.
I mean, it's going to need to be kept going, and I'm hoping to spend a lot more time in the back of it and building it into this camper conversion.
nice.
And put a little pop top on and make this whole little home.
Are there sort of Land Rover accessories you can get? Can you buy a Land Rover roof tent, or do you have to go and design your own one? Or,
Oh no, there's a million and one people making anything you could possibly want, and and that's kind of in some ways the joy and the difficulty of it, because it's like I want to get all of the cool kit, but there's so much cool kit to get, and then also like, do you actually need that, or is it just going to add unnecessary weight? So I've got a whole process to go through of what do I actually need to have in the new vehicle. I almost just said what it was in the new vehicle, to make it functional so I can go on mega missions and road trip around.
Where do you want to go?
Everywhere. It's been literally my plan since I was 5. I just want to go everywhere.
Beyond Europe?
Everywhere.
Africa?
Everywhere.
The moon?
So I mean, genuinely, if someone said, hey, do you want to go
Here's
to the
a
moon?
rocket. Off you go.
I'll be straight in there. That's the whole plan. Just big old adventures.
It does sound really, really good fun. I can't wait to see what the car is. I can't wait to follow your adventures in that thing, because I think so many of us would love to do that. Just jump into a car that we can sleep in, that we can prepare food in, and just go into the wilderness, get lost, and see what happens.
It's the happiest place ever. It's just brilliant. And you're
Wow.
outside 24/7, because even when you're in your car, you're still outside.
can you get heated roof tents?
You can get electric blankets and then plug them into. But you just get a better sleeping bag.
Okay.
Maybe we can go camping.
You're not selling this. good luck with that.
Tatty, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we didn't scare you by asking too many difficult car questions.
No, you've been very lovely.
There you go.
Good. Well, I think we
I told you we would be.
Thank
we
you
try
for
to
having
be,
me.
don't we? Over in the Rover on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
Yeah.
anywhere else? Have you got a website we should be pointing people
Fax
towards?
me. I mean,
Fax, yeah.
That's about it.
Okay.
Pigeon mail.
You should all go and follow Over in the Rover on whichever platform you use, because it's really good fun stuff. And as Andrew said, it is absolutely the antidote to all the vacuous nonsense that we do see on social media. Hopefully not on our channel.
No, hopefully not.
Not on the Intercooler podcast or magazine.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Yes.
Thank you.
You could become a brand ambassador if you like.
So listen, Tatty, thank you again for coming in. That was
Yeah,
really good
indeed.
fun.
Thank
Great
you
to
for having
talk,
me.
and keep it up. And to everyone watching or listening, make sure you follow Tatty Over in the Rover, and also follow this show if you're just listening to this as an audio podcast. Whichever app you use, there'll be a little plus button or a follow button or something. Hit it, because it means you don't miss an episode, and it means we get to find new followers. So please do that. If you're just watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Thank you ever so much, and we'll be back again next week.
See you then.
Bye.